Yeah.
Hello everybody, Savat the Mighty here, and I'm back with another Eve Echoes video. So in today's video, we're going to be taking another look at a ship that we have already looked at, and that ship today is going to be the Tier 9 Armageddon. So before we get started, I would like to say if you do like my content, please leave a like on the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified whenever I do release new content in the future. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look again at the Armageddon. Alright, so with T9 being active now, I am trying to look at all these ships. I did the Versus series, and we took a look at some of the other ones as well. And what we're looking at here is just kind of getting an overview of this ship and what kind of it brings to the table and if it's going to be a good fit for you. Now, we looked at the Dominics. This is the other drone boat. I think this drone boat is in a little different position as it has more of a PvP aspect, I would say, to it. So let's take a look and see what it has. So for its Advanced Electronic Warfare bonus per level, it's going to get plus 10% Energy Nosferatu optimal range and plus 10% Energy Neutralizer optimal range per level. That's up to additional 50%. That's pretty good. For its Battleship Command bonus, it's going to get plus 40% drone DPS, plus 5% drone effective hit points, and plus 6 km drone control range. Now, the DPS, the effective hit points, especially the effective hit points, tells me that this is probably geared more towards PvP, where people are actually going to be shooting at your drones, not necessarily PvE. But we're going to be taking a look at it in the PvE aspect, knowing that you can probably do some incredible things with this ship in PvP, and still put it to good use in PvE as well. The basic information is overall defense is 73,091, with a flight velocity of 133, a warp speed of 2, a power grid output of 8,573 megawatts, a capacitor that holds 7,430 gigajoules, and a cargo hold capacity of 1,200 M3. Primarily an armor resistance tank. Let's take a look and see what we've done here. So in the high slots, I do have 4 of the Pith C-type large rapid missile launchers. The reason why I still decided to stay with these instead of using something else is specifically that it's not going to have trouble hitting anything with these rapid missile launchers. It's going to apply its damage evenly, and it has a missile range of 36.89 km. That's important. When we go to our mid slots, we can look at our Vigalakis large energy Nosferatus. As you can see here, their optimal range is 36 km. So it puts it very in line very nicely with those missile launchers. So I do like that and think it's pretty effective. Now, it does have an accuracy fall off of an additional 21 km, so you can move back to a total of 57 km and still be getting 50% of that effectiveness. So if you move in and out a little bit, you are going to have that wiggle room to still at least be draining some of that energy and getting it to you. We did go ahead and equip a second one of those as well to take full advantage of the bonuses this ship is receiving. We're also equipped with a Predator Stasis Webifier and a Predator Warp Scrambler. The Webifier is basically to grab ships and slow them down, and the Scram that we have on here, this is basically to turn off micro warp drives, make our missiles apply that damage a little bit better, and let our drones do their thing. Now, this ship, it gets drone DPS specifically, so it can use all types of drones as well. So one of the things to mention on this is its drone control range is 65 km, and that's what we're talking about right now. We're getting into the drones here. Drone control range is 65 km, and I have in here a full array of Mark 9 Ogres. This could easily be replaced with your sentries, medium drones, anything that you would like in here, and it has a pretty decent sized drone bay that's able to actually fit those. 3,750 M3 of drones, that's a lot of drones. So don't be scared to fill this thing up with all sorts of different varieties of drones that you want. Now, that being said, I wanted to kind of use the large drones on this ship and go in there brawl and see if we can web things down and put a pretty hefty tank on here, because that's how I envisioned this ship playing. However, you could definitely go with a lot more DPS bit as well. And what I mean by that is, we'll discuss that a little bit more when we get to the rigs. Let's go into the low slots. So in the low slots, I have 2 Corpus C-type large armor reppers. I'm using a Corpus C-type adaptive armor hardener and a Corpum C-type reactive armor hardener. I also on here a GIST C-type large micro warp drive. I know what you're thinking. Why if it's going to be an up-close brawler? Well, here's the reason. I want to use the cap as much as possible on this ship. I want to kind of put it to its extreme test so we're actually using those Nosferatus to their full extent. And as you can see, the capacitor is actually sitting here stable. So if it's running 2 armor reppers large, plus it's using the drones, the missiles don't take anything away from there, and it has that micro warp drive on, means it's going to be able to zip around the battlefield still with a full tank active, repping for a just ton, and getting the job done. Now, does it do quite as much damage as the other ships of this tier with this fit? No, not quite. It's sitting at 576.58 drone DPS and 441.25 missile DPS. It's not so great. That's under 1,000. It is going to pretty much be able to apply that damage all the time, though, as it can dictate the range and just get there where it needs to be. In theory, haven't actually used it here yet. For the rigs, I went with a more tanky fit on here. For our combat rigs, we have an anti-kinetic pump 3, and we have an anti-thermal pump 3. Also, we wanted to apply a little bit more damage with the missiles, so I put in a bay loading accelerator. Bay loading accelerator can be replaced with something like the drone amplifier if you want to have more of your damage coming from the drones. But since my damage on my missiles was a little bit lower, I wanted to amp that up a little bit if I'm going to be using those missiles to take out a lot of the smaller targets. And try to get it as even-steven as possible between my drones and missiles, even though it's primarily drones. So those drones at 65 km is what I was wanting to talk about here. You can rig this ship out to make effective use of like sentries and longer range fighting. Each one of the drone control ranges is going to give you an additional 15 km. So if you did throw 2 of those in there, you are going to be at 95 km, which is just shy of that 100. You could be able to set out quite a bit of range, throw a damage in there, and just pretty much fight with drones and cannons and treat it kind of like a Dominix. Or you can use large missiles on it as well. Will it be as effective? I mean, you're kind of giving up fighting at that range. One of the cool things about this ship, which is being able to use these energy Nosferatus and the neutralizers for PvP. So, I don't know if I really like that. I mean, if you're going to be fighting at that range, get a Dominix. I mean, unless you really just want to use this ship. This ship here, though, is going to get that neutralizer and the Nosferatu range, so you would kind of want to take that into account and use that in part of your fits, I would imagine. So that's why I went with this super tanky fit. It's going to be basically the lazy boy of mission running. So the hope is you can basically just go ahead and turn everything on, have your auto orbit set, let this ship go to town, and it's going to do whatever the heck it wants to and just murder everything on the field, and you're not going to have to micromanage a thing. So that is using in the engineering slots here. We do have a semiconductor memory cell. We also have a second one of those and a capacitor control circuit, all level 3s. And so that is the ship in full. Again, like I said, I would definitely recommend putting in more drones, but I would have to get all of that set up and everything. So I just want to use the large drones. I've been veering away from those for a while. I just kind of want to see this ship do its thing. Okay, so for its core defense here, what we're looking at is it has a total of 108,000 effective hit points, with 23,630 coming from shields, with an EM resistance of 0, a thermal resistance of 20, a kinetic resistance of 40, and an explosive resistance of 55. For armor, it has 33,862 hit points, with an EM resistance of 50, a thermal resistance of 61, a kinetic resistance of 55, and an explosive resistance of 20. That is taking into account our rigs. And for structure, it has 28,030 structure hit points, with 33% resistances across the board. Its capacitor is stable at 5.47 gigajoules a second, or a total of 14.3%. With a capacitor capacity of 10,866 gigajoules and a recharge time of 713 seconds. On here, we'll also show our maximum power grid is 12,859. For targeting, it has a radar sensor strength of 26 points, with a scan resolution of 153, a signature radius of 292, and can lock a maximum of 7 targets. For its navigation, it moves at 192.85, with a warp prep time of 13.37 seconds and a warp speed of 2 AUs. Now that we have the ship done here, we'll go ahead and jump into the combat. Alright, so we're out here at the combat anomaly. And let's start moving in a direction, and let's take a look at the things that we have on this ship. So let's activate our shields, and let's activate that micro warp drive, and let's take a look at our fittings. So where are we sitting at? So for our defense on our armor tank, we're sitting at an EM resistance of 67%, thermal 73, kinetic 69, and explosive 47. Not bad. So not bad at all, actually, with running 2 reppers. So I like that. Our navigation, we're sitting at 1,138.96. We can pretty much keep that going for forever. We're going to turn that off, though, because we are about to warp, and that's just going to make our warp time atrocious. So let's get in here. We're going to warp to about 16. What I'm actually going to do is set my orbit. I want to set my orbit to 35. I want to give those missiles a little bit of room, and I'm going to set my approach to 0 because I like to approach and move closer to things whenever I want to. Okay, so once we get there, we will. We'll start lighting some things up and see how this does. One of the things I really want to do, and another choice for using the missiles here, is if I have that micro warp drive on all the time, then that's going to be fun, and those missiles shouldn't be affected by that too terribly much. So I'm kind of excited about that. So what do we want to do? We want to lock everything first off, and after we lock everything, we're going to pick a target. We're going to say orbit that target, and we're just going to turn everything on and leave it on. That's where we want to be. There we go. And we don't want to care. Focus fire. So we're going to set our orbit, set our micro warp drive. I guess the web is a little bit of something that we're not going to be using too terribly much if we're staying at our range. The missiles are firing, so that is going off. I think the drones are going to have a little bit of a hard time hitting these smaller targets without having them webbed. So that might have been a hey, what is going on? Can you get back in there, please? Why are we 80 km away? Alright, so for being 80 km away, obviously I screwed something up there. Let's turn that off. Didn't realize I was just going away. I thought we were actually in orbit of the ship, but it did not orbit. So that's probably me, and that's me with my settings again. So let's go to battle settings. Yeah, let's turn everything back on. Cool. Sure. So disregard that little faux pas there. And let's go ahead and start murdering this guy. We should be able to send the drones. And that's when we just do our regular approach. Come on. And we can activate all of our stuff. Yeah, we don't even need to activate the armor reppers, but again, I want to turn them on and just leave them on. A lazy man's fighting. Okay, we should be in range now. Let's set our orbit. And we can be cool. I want to see if this thing truly is capacitor stable. What's going on? Oh no. Our shields, they're running out. Why are we orbiting at 37 km? Okay. Maybe I have the battle settings set incorrectly. Maybe it's supposed to be default orbital range. There we go. Matter of fact, why are you guys so far away? Let's get closer. That's a bit troublesome there. Maybe I should have done the test battle before I did my test battle to make sure I had that all right. Okay, so we are approaching. Come on, approach. We're still doing some damage with the drones, but we can't even get into missile range right now. These guys are wanting to stay kind of far out. I guess the micro warp drive is more of a hindrance than it is helping. Okay, let's orbit this guy at 20. 20 seems good. Okay. That's not bad. Drones are doing work, missiles are hitting. And again, you could probably get so much more damage out of this ship as well. This is just a super lazy boy tank fit that should be able to just tank through pretty much anything. Speaking of that, let's take a look here and see where we're at. 75 and 76. Not bad for only the 2 hardeners there. So again, we're really expecting this thing to be stable completely at around, I guess it was 15%, if I recall. Capacitor is stable, yeah, 14.3. So it is going to be stable pretty low, but stable nonetheless. And what is going on with my sound? Yeah, I have sound effects on. I don't know why I've lost sound effects volume. This is quite concerning. I don't like it. I like to hear the sound of my whooshes as my missile goes. So these guys really aren't going to do much of anything to us. It's just a matter of actually killing. So you could definitely swap out for some damage mods, use what you want, and do this a whole lot faster. But I really did want to put on there what I would think would be an effective tank. Let's actually orbit. 24 is fine. We can orbit a little closer. And the ship being able to use that micro warp drive. I mean, I don't know why it's necessary to use a micro warp drive. I don't think it is. I just think it's quite funny that we have a battleship here with a micro warp drive on 24/7. Now, even orbiting at this speed, though, it's not able to hit its 1,100. Every time this thing turns, it loses speed so much. But it's quite funny to me that we have a battleship here that's actually got a pretty decent tank. It's doing an alright amount of damage, nothing to cry home about, but... and it's able to do 1,000 as well. Speed tanking with a 500% signature radius. Not really. But I find it quite amusing. So what else could we do with this ship? I mean, like I said earlier, we could do the long range stuff with it. That would be fun. If the long range stuff isn't your cup of tea and you do want to stay close range, which again, that's what I would prefer to do. We could throw on some things like torpedoes. Maybe we could use some torpedoes. We could use some pulse lasers. All sorts of different things that we could do. Yeah, if we web this guy, approach that guy. Okay. Ah, micro warp drive was off. Oh, something's got us scrammed. No, we have to move slow. Kill this test drone. Man, we don't want to be scrammed. Get him. Make them pay. Alright, turn that on. We can move again! Alright. And I want to orbit you at... Yeah. Could try to orbit at 10. Okay. Next on our list is going to be this Armageddon? I hate saying that word. If you've watched my videos before, I always have trouble with that name of that ship. $37, $39, what is going on? Have you orbiting at 35? Is a micro warp drive just too much for you? Yeah, we get way too far out with this guy. I really don't think that the micro warp drive was a funny idea, but in all honesty, keeping it on is more of a detriment. We should just get into range and turn it off and slow boat around, which is optimally how you would actually play if you were going to do something like this. Okay, like now we should be able to turn it off and just putt in. Let's go ahead and approach that guy there. And we can just basically skate by everyone and murder them. Yeah, after seeing everything explode in such quick times for a lot of the other ships we've been testing out, it is kind of not the funnest thing in the world to have to sit here and wait for so long, but it is also very entertaining to know that they're just shooting us and we don't care. Now, to come along with that, I mean, technically we had ships that had almost no tank on it whatsoever, and in a news mission, they were still able to tank them just fine. But they were doing a lot more damage. They were basically tanking through DPS. But I think this would definitely be a ship that you wouldn't really want to... You wouldn't be happy to try to gank this guy if you were in like a small cruiser or a frigate. Most likely it's going to be able to out-tank you and drain your cap. With the missiles, if you get too close to it, it's going to web you and start hitting you with those missiles, which should apply damage quite well. It has a micro warp drive on it, so it will be able to zip around the battlefield. So there is quite a few interesting things there to take into consideration when talking about PvP and actually having a tank fit on this ship. Knowing that it'd be able to survive a lot of regular encounters out in space and would even be able to hold its own versus a lot of ships just because it's probably going to have a pretty decent tank and be able to neutralize the crap out of them. Just think of it this way, you could have a lighter tank on here, replace that with a newt, and even if a cruiser or a frigate comes up to you, you could probably drain their cap pretty quickly. And then they're not much of a threat. A lot like a baby Balgorn. But the fact remains that this ship doesn't actually get any type of weapon bonuses other than the drones, so keeping your damage on those and kind of having your weapons as a secondary damage source is probably going to be the best way to go. I mean, even in this ship here, if I would have focused and put that damage amplifier on the drones, a drone damage amplifier, for the rigs, instead of the missiles, it would have probably been doing better. Very interesting ship overall. Alright, so now we're just going to stop. Here is where we're going to sit. Oh, I said stop. Actually, approach that guy, web that guy, scram him, focus fire. And we got a scram on us again, so we're not moving anywhere anyway. But guess what they're not going to do? They're not going to hurt us. And so I'm actually kind of curious. Set orbit. Set orbit 17. So if I was just to like lean back in my chair and let this thing go, would it be AFK? Like, obviously it's not going to target when the mission first starts, and we'd have to turn on the Nosferatus, but is it truly going to be able to just target and take out whatever it wants without any interference from myself? I mean, if that's the case, what's the point in having the scram and the web on there? So let's set orbit to 11. Turn that bad boy on. Okay. One of the reasons why I'm setting the orbit to 11 there is I want to see if we can keep it at 11, if it will get in range, but I just think everything's going to be out of range too terribly much to warrant using those on a true AFK build. So that's not even a real thing that's going to be able to happen, so killing everything slow doing your true AFK, Weber, Scram, not going to work for that really. You're still going to have to micromanage those. Yeah, very hands off. I always think it's funny whenever you're armor tanking. Your ship looks beat up. Look at that. This thing looks like it has just been obliterated in combat, but yet the armor is full. Always makes me laugh. Alright, let's see what its next decision is going to be. So next it's going to go after the test drone. Makes sense, that's the closest. And here we can activate these and see if it can stay within range of stuff to keep those activated. I don't think it will be able to. Maybe though, everybody else is staying pretty close. Uh-oh, it's at 14. 15, the web's not going to be able to do it. Guess we're just skirting the edges there. Okay, so it was able to lock up its little buddy here, the destroyer. It cut through him just fine. And our battle cruiser's looking like it's going down pretty quickly too. These guys are a lot of hull and a lot of armor. Not very much so in the shield, so... Not bad. Okay, that has been completed. Man, sometimes whenever these start getting going for a while, I start zoning out. Sorry about that, guys. I'm actually checking on a couple of different things here. I'm actually multitasking right now, trying to get a couple of things put out and get prepared for tomorrow. I'm going to be doing that live stream, and it's going to be a very, very nice. So overall, did the ship do it? Yeah, 100%. Super AFK, super cap stable, super fun. Well, I like a little bit more action there. But I had a really good time with this ship, and I think it's going to actually be able to do a lot of stuff with some damage abilities as well. So ultimately, I would say, yeah, the ship is going to be a great ship. It's going to be able to do the close-range brawling. It can build a pretty beefy tank on it. I'm very curious to see how it's going to do in PvP with all of the different Nosferatus and newts and everything that are going to get put on here. So tell me what you guys think. Do you like this ship? How would you fit yours? And is this a ship that's on your radar for T9? All right, well, thanks again, everybody. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.